everybody, and welcome to the GamecockScoop.com podcast, the official podcast of GamecockScoop.com on Rivals. I'm Caleb Alexander, publisher and sort of recruiting for every sport. And then Alan Cole is here with me, who's the beat reporter for every major sport. And right now, that major sport is football. It's finally football season.
About time.
So before we get fully into some game stuff, I did want to talk a little bit about recruiting, which is how we usually start on every show. I just realized I said recruiting. It's because in the podcast notes I have it written just cruitin', and now it's slowly morphing into the way that I talk. Yeah. So those of you that didn't catch it, Desmond Umeozulu, four-star edge out of Flowers, Maryland, continues the DMV pipeline by committing on Monday. And I did this really interesting fact or fiction with Rivals national analyst Adam Friedman earlier this week. He gave me a call and he was like, "Hey, you want to do a fact or fiction on whether South Carolina has the best D-line recruiting class in the nation?" And I was like, "Oh, like, yeah." I honestly didn't even think that they were in that conversation, but then as I did a little bit of research on it, you have like Clemson, who's got a pretty good class, Alabama, who's got a pretty good class, Florida, who's got a pretty good class, and then South Carolina's right there in that same breath, really. I did find out as I was doing my research that whether or not they have the top D-line recruiting class in the nation right now, it's arguably the top D-line recruiting class, at least by star ranking, that South Carolina has ever had. So in 2011, you could argue that one was better because they had Clowney, which kind of tips the scales pretty
number one overall
pretty dramatically. Yeah, and they had 2 4-stars in that class as well. But this is the first class. I went all the way back to 2002, when Rivals started. This is the first class that's ever had 4 4-star D-line recruits in the same class. Or 4-star or higher D-line recruits in the same class. So that's a pretty good way to establish the trenches. That's what all the coaches and everyone were tweeting about. Yeah. And really on both sides of the ball, the O-line has 4-star in Tosin Babalade, 4-star in Marquis Anderson, and then the group of 3-stars they have are very solid. Jatavius Shivers, Isaiah Jada, which is a JUCO guy, brings some experience immediately. And Trovon Ball. How did I forget Trovon? Who is like, stereotypical, just like mean streak sort of lineman that you want. So both sides of the line are looking very, very good. Definitely some of the best collection of talent in one class on each side of the line that I've seen in quite some time. There's another thing recruiting wise. So I put in a Futurecast that I think Gamecock fans should get pretty excited about. I put in a Futurecast for 5-star, number 1 overall athlete, number 9 overall player in the country, Nicholas Harbor. Now, I say that with a caveat. Sometimes I put in a Futurecast, and I know, someone's got their commitment date coming up, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. That was kind of the case with Desmond Umeozulu, who I put Futurecast in for maybe, I guess it was like 9 or 10 days before he committed. It just seemed like things were trending that way. By all accounts, Harbor's not going to commit anytime soon. He's got several official visits to take still. He hasn't taken any of his 5. It seems most likely he's definitely going to take one to Michigan and one to South Carolina. We reported this a few weeks ago. He'll be at South Carolina for the Georgia game in a couple weeks. And then he's probably not going to make his decision until after his high school season's over. So we're looking at like a December, January timeline.
Early signing period.
Yeah. In fact, I think he's even thinking about pushing it to the late signing period, but making his decision. Making his decision before that, but not signing in the first group. But again, all that can change. All that's fluid. But me putting in the Futurecast for Harbor is basically me saying I think South Carolina is the leader right now, which is something that I wouldn't have said a few weeks ago. They still have some work to do. I think Michigan's given him a lot to think about. I think track will play a factor here. It's still possible that he could just go, the Olympic route. He's that good as a track and field athlete. So we'll just have to see. But I think South Carolina is in great position. And if you had me put my money on it on this date, it would be to South Carolina. So that's what that future cast means. I'll keep everyone updated.
That would be a game changer. You talk about, we talk about the men's basketball team with Gigi Jackson. You mentioned Jadeveon Clowney there. Oh, geez, I guess 11 years ago now. Those are the kind of players that can change a class, change a program.
Where you think about why this DMV connection is working so well. One, obviously the Beamer name carries a lot of weight there. Also, several of the members of the staff have spent time there in various ways.
Torian Gray,
Torian Gray. I know Sterling Lucas spent some time with the Baltimore Ravens, which that's the NFL, but still spent some time in that area. A lot of the assistants are familiar with that area. And then the second thing is South Carolina is the closest SEC school to that area. So if you have a recruit that wants to play in the best conference in the country, then South Carolina is kind of an attractive opinion because it's still drivable from Virginia, from Maryland, whatever. A couple
Atkins too. Was it Marshall? It's West Virginia, but not DMV. But you got Atkins from that area too, sort of.
Right. Yeah. No. Like I said, lots of and a lot of those assistants have. I mean, obviously, this is how assistant coaches work, but have ties to the Beamer name and the Beamer family.
Yeah,
so.
For sure.
The last thing, as far as just recruiting updates go, there's going to be a lot of visitors in town this weekend. Most of the 2023 guys are current commits. I can get that full list out in the recruiting wrap up tomorrow. A couple of 24 guys that I just know off the top of my head, but again, the list is longer than this. Running back Jaden Scott, who is a very important target for South Carolina. He really blew up this past year in rivals camps. He won like the MVP of the Southeast camp in Atlanta, I think. Kelvin Hunter, who is a safety. Mazio Bennett, of course, wide receiver out of Greenville. And then even a 2025 recruit, Amari Adams, D lineman, who's going to be a really good one. He's a giant already as a sophomore. So that's just a quick smattering of names, but I'll have the full list in the weekly recruiting wrap up tomorrow, and it should be 15, 20 long. So quite a few commits on campus this weekend, which we talked a little bit about last week. Most of the other schools in the area are playing away, except for Georgia. So it's pretty much Georgia or South Carolina as far as if you want to go.
Well, even Georgia, they're playing at Mercedes-Benz. They're not in Athens this weekend.
Right. So yeah, you're not even going to get the full campus experience with that one. All right, it is game week. Finally, here we go. Got some football tonight.
I'm really excited about tonight.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the backyard brawl.
Yeah,
that's gonna be good.
I'm sneaky looking at Penn State Purdue too. You can have a really bad time at Purdue if you're not careful, and that's like a Thursday night, week 1 game. Purdue's got a returning quarterback. That could be interesting too.
Yeah, I'm just so glad that there's meaningful football being played. Although that Nebraska Northwestern game, which we're going to talk about just one section of here in a little bit. But that I mean, it was interesting. It was entertaining. I wouldn't say it was a good football game, but it was entertaining.
Probably not. I mean, but it was there. We got Vanderbilt on Saturday too, clearly establishing itself as the national title favorites through week 0. Dude, I can't even argue with it.
They scored the most points. Sorry, I just went off screen for a second. I'm turning my fan on. They scored the most points that they've scored since 1948 or something like that. Something insane.
Yeah, I don't think people really understand how bad of a state of disrepair Todd Graham left Hawaii in with that whole fiasco when he left. That's going to be a really, really long year there.
Well, it's administration down is kind of in a wreck there. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate because I remember growing up and enjoying watching the late night Hawaii games with Colt Brennan and those guys there. So.
Yep.
All right, well, let's get to some South Carolina football. because there is a football game being played at 7. Is it 7 or 7:30?
7:30.
7:30 on Saturday evening against the Georgia State Panthers. We got quite a bit of news to get through as far as game week presser information. The depth chart finally came out. There's a couple surprises there, I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had any. My number one surprise was definitely that Mo Kaba was starting over Sherrod Green at middle linebacker. I don't know if that's just because Sherrod Green missed a little bit of time with injury or what's going on there. But I did see in the big press packet that they sent us that Mo Kaba was named the 2022 Most Improved Player of the Spring. And Clayton White was just sort of lauding his praises at the press conference today, saying, that he's the sort of football player that you want, sort of flies around, has all those natural instincts, and now he's got the size and speed to kind of compete at the SEC level. So it seems like they're, giving him the full endorsement there.
Yeah, I think it's probably some of both. You talk about, I think Sherrod Green being hurt and coming off 2 injury years, really part of that they have to be really cautious with him. You can't maybe put him at full speed in these practices. So I think it's, it can be 6 and one half dozen in the other. Sherrod Green being hurt contributed, but also from what we've seen and what we've heard, Mo Kaba had a really good spring, obviously, and a really good fall too. A really good camp here. And yeah, I don't know if it's so much that Sherrod Green lost the spot as much as that Mo Kaba took it.
Yeah, and I expect both to get quite a few snaps as long as Sherrod Green's healthy. But I definitely thought that the 6-year senior was going to get the first snap. So that's interesting. Of course, maybe we shouldn't be reading too much into the depth chart. I know Clayton White got a little annoyed at reporters yesterday for asking about the depth chart.
He got 3 questions in a row about different pieces of the depth chart, one of which was from me, and he's finally like, just stop, just don't use the word depth chart.
Was that his response to your question, or was it someone after you?
I think that was actually me, because I went third. It was 2 others, and then you sent me the okay, substitution, or what'd you send, depth or spreadsheet of substitutions or something?
Yeah, a spreadsheet of depth, because it sounded like spreadsheet of death a little bit to me. What were your other favorite other names that you could call a depth chart?
Oh, I had a few on Twitter, Alan_Cole. You can follow me there. I had what did I have? Playing time receipts. I had weekly role reminder. Positional update. I had 4 or 5 on there, but yeah, we're just gonna not use the word depth. We're gonna sidestep around that. Even
it's funny because I feel like the defensive depth chart is pretty straightforward. There was a lot less 4s written on it. But we called it last week the wide receiver room, just completely here's all 6 of these people, and they're all starters, I guess, depending on the scheme, depending on whatever the game plan is going to be. So it looks like you got a big 6 of, let's see if I can name them all off the top of my head: Josh Vann, Antoine Wells, Amarian Brown, Xavier Legette,
Corey Rucker.
Well, Corey Rucker, but he's probably
probably not this Saturday, but in general.
Yeah, he was on that initial 6 though. We're missing someone. Dakereon Joyner.
Yeah,
and someone else. But yeah, so
that was
anyway,
basically yesterday. I know we talked about this a little bit last week. Again, if you're getting down to a point where you're at your 3rd string quarterback, things are probably going sideways anyway at that point. But there was talk yesterday from Marcus Satterfield. He was mentioning there's still some packages for Dakereon Joyner at quarterback in the playbook. That's not something they would rule out. Again, if they ever got to the extreme circumstance where Spencer and Luke couldn't play, maybe Dakereon Joyner is the 3rd string quarterback.
I'm thinking he probably is. Although, notably they did not list that on the depth chart either. But I also think it seems like they're going to make an emphasis of at least giving him a series or a couple of plays or whatever per game, which I think is probably smart. Like, Spencer Rattler is mobile, but I wouldn't call him the electric runner that Dakereon Joyner can be.
Right.
The only problem with the way that I think that they've used him in the past is usually he has not been a threat to throw the ball at all. But maybe since he threw the ball a bit in the bowl game and kind of showed that he has that the ability to at least be serviceable in that category, they can mix that in a little bit, and then it makes it less obvious when he's in the game that they're just going to run, a quarterback keeper or zone read or whatever. But yeah, I would expect to see him. I don't know if you pull him out against Georgia State or whatever, but I would expect to see him in these first 3 games take some snaps at quarterback.
It's going to be a very specific it might be a goal line package. It might be a red zone thing. It might be a 4th and 1, just something kind of not maybe on your regular play sheet for a specific situation. I think might be where you get some to carry on Joyner under center.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched the games from last year, Alan, but Marcus Satterfield has been known to get creative with the trick plays and stuff. And, sometimes
I know what he did against Tennessee. I can see you shaking your
right,
head.
Sometimes that's not gone well with
Right.
Jordan Birch, throwing an interception in the end zone, really squashing any momentum. But I believe it was against Auburn, I saw that they put in a backup offensive lineman. I can't remember who it is right now. But they put in a backup offensive lineman at fullback and threw him a little dump pass off to the side, which scored a touchdown. So, varying results. It's worked sometimes. It hasn't worked sometimes. But I expect to see some trickeration. It just seems like that's part of it. And honestly, I like that. It was Trey Jones was the offensive lineman that they put in at fullback last year as a freshman. Other depth chart things, though, you got Dylan Wonnum. You got that call right that he's going to start over Tyshawn Wanamaker. But as we said, we expect to play. And really, Satterfield yesterday said that they have 8 or 9 deep at offensive line that they expect to rotate in.
Yeah, I mean, Wanham had the job before he got hurt last year. There was no reason to think he would have lost it if he hadn't have gotten hurt last year. So I think that was probably always where it was going to trend, even though he did get pushed a little bit in camp, it sounds like.
Right. And then on defense, we talked about how Nick Emenwari and DQ Smith both got a lot of high praise as freshmen throughout the preseason, Nick Emenwari especially, and both of them were listed on the 2 deep backing up the safeties. So if either RJ Roderick or Devontae Reed need a breather or can't go, we're expecting to see some freshmen play on Saturday night, that's pretty cool. They're pretty much the only ones I saw on the 2 deep that are true freshmen that should get some playing time immediately, other than on special teams.
Right. That's kind of scary when you talk about both of them at the same position. Obviously, again, you're not anticipating both your safeties going down or even one of them, but it's still this thing, it's same position. If either one of them goes down, you're putting a true freshman in the game.
Right. And I imagine if either safety was out for either or both safeties were out for a while, they might do some shuffling around back there.
Sure.
See
Tyrese Ross maybe.
Right. Or Marcellus Style, someone like that. Right. But yeah, we'll just have to see. And then the only other thing that really stood out to me from the depth chart, which you can tell me if there's anything else, was that Xavier Legette was listed as the starter at kick returner, which to me, he has never flashed as someone that's like a burner, but It seems like he's got pretty steady hands and he can put, a move or two on. So I don't hate that.
I think we're going to see a lot of different people in that role through the year. I don't think that's going to be a lock thing.
Yeah, and there was something that Pete Lembo said yesterday about Marshawn Lloyd on special teams, and that he was going to have some sort of special role that they didn't want to share yet, too. Which I don't know if that's going to be just in blocking or tackling, or if that's going to be trying to put the ball in his hands. I don't know, but
I don't know if that's necessarily a good idea either. If he's your starting running back,
right.
But
yeah, I really enjoyed seeing Juju McDowell turning kicks last year, so I'm kind of intrigued. Maybe they'll do a 2-back sort of thing. We'll have to see on Saturday night. Anything else from the depth chart that stood out to you?
That pretty much covers it. I mean, like you said, the defense is straightforward. 4 out of the 5 offensive line spots had themselves decided. It was just the right tackle. Obviously, we know what the deal is at quarterback. We know the wide receiver group's pretty kind of strung together right now. Yeah, I think that was not really real surprises.
All right. Well, let's talk some of the press conferences we've had this week. So we had players and Shane Bieber on Tuesday. For better or worse, the biggest quote that I remember from the players on Tuesday was Antoine Wells Jr. says that we're going to go out there and kill him, which Marcus Satterfield followed up yesterday and said basically that he's a great player that needs to watch what he says in press conferences or something like that.
Yeah, it was tough because someone asked him basically what are you seeing from Georgia State on the tape? Like what's kind of the takeaways getting ready? And I think what he meant to say was more we're focused on ourselves, we're focused on making us the best we can. We're not so much looking at Georgia State, but the way that came out was more, it doesn't matter who the opponent is, we're going to kill him. Which I don't think is exactly what he meant to say, but it's what he said. So
hey, I like the attitude. Just maybe don't give the opposing team something to put on their board.
Sean Elliott's going to be running out of thumbtacks here soon.
Anything else stand out to you from the players that day? I know you have a little teaser here, but you have an extended article coming out on Jordan Strahan, who of course played at Georgia State. That'll be coming out on tomorrow. Yeah. Which, by the way, GamecockScoop.com, that's going to be a really, really good article. I know that you spoke to like some members of his family. It's a deep dive, so that should be really good. But he spoke with the media this week, and then Cam Smith. Anything really stand out from the players to you?
I think mainly what stood out is, especially from Spencer Rattler, is all this talk, all this offseason, all this hype. Spencer Rattler is very ready to play a football game. Like, it's palpable. He actually said verbatim, like, I'm ready to get hit once or twice, because obviously he's not getting hit in fall camp as the starting quarterback. He's talking about how excited he is, atmosphere, getting hit, playing games. Like, I mean, we're all excited. I'm excited to cover a game. You're excited to watch a game. Like, we're all there. This team seems really, really, really ready to run out of the tunnel right now. Just like a pot that's going to bubble off.
Yeah, I don't know if you played like football in high school or anything, but I played in high school, and I just remember that the fall camp just like felt like it dragged on forever. And then you would scrimmage a little bit here and there, but that first time that you finally got to hit someone on an opposing team, because you're still kind of holding back in scrimmages, you don't want to hurt
your teammates, right?
Yeah, exactly. So just that transition from like, okay, we're finally everything that we've prepared for is kind of coming to a head. I can definitely empathize with that. That feeling and that feeling of wanting to get hit too, right? Like I know there were some times in the spring game, and then I even remember from the welcome home first footage of scrimmage 1, where Spencer Rattler like would take off on a run and get like 2-hand touched or whatever. And he's like, nah, I would have broken that tackle. And then we're like, well, we have to stop it. So now we'll see if he's actually going to just run through those tackles, which is something that he worked on in the offseason, was like bulking up and being able to take a little bit more of an aggressive mindset into his run game. Another real quick note on Rattler is that Jadeveon Clowney will be in the house on Saturday night because his number is being retired. His jersey is being retired, not his number. So that just means people can still wear the number, but his, jersey is going to be honored and forever in the annals of South Carolina history. And I did see that Rattler kind of commented on that a second, that, Clowney's the best defensive end to ever come through college football. And, that he felt honored that he's going to be wearing the same number or whatever.
Yeah, he said it wasn't even Clowney. He says he wore 7 growing up because he was a Michael Vick fan, which I can see. He's mobile quarterback growing up. And then he got to Oklahoma, and CeeDee Lamb had that number. So he went to 2, and now he's back at South Carolina. He wanted 7 again, which I don't think that was even Clowney related. But that's pretty cool that if Rattler's as good as people think he might be, and this season breaks the way it could, two of the best players in the last decade of the program could have both had number 7.
Right. Well, we will have to see it. And yeah, you get one on each side of the ball, then, it'd be nice to one day retire. Although I don't know if you retired after one season. I guess it depends on how exceptional that season is.
Right.
And then Coach Beamer talked on Tuesday. He also talked for a little bit yesterday. Injury-wise, it seems like Kai Kroger should be good to go.
Sounds like it.
And that Christian Beal-Smith should be able to play, which is a little bit surprising. But that he was listed as the or with Juju McDowell behind Marshawn Lloyd on the depth chart. So we'll see how much Christian Beal-Smith actually plays, or if they let him take another week off, or if he's just kind of there in case someone gets hurt or whatever. And then Corey Rucker is the one that kind of sounds pretty questionable heading into Saturday night, unfortunately.
Yeah, nobody seemed super bullish on him being able to play. Beamer said he still had a long way to go. Satterfield was, talking about using other receivers in depth if he can't go. It doesn't seem like it's trending that way.
Right. Another thing that I thought pretty much every coach and several players hit on, I don't know if just someone in the room was asking specifically about it, was about game day atmosphere, which I gave you a short list earlier of some recruits that are going to be in town, which I'll give that full list tomorrow on GamecockScoop.com. But yeah, it seems like that they were really hyping up this idea that South Carolina's atmosphere is going to be exceptional. It's always been exceptional, but it's kind of taken that step forward, which I put out an article on like what to expect at Williams-Brice Stadium. There's been a lot of upgrades this offseason. And I've really found it interesting that Shane Beamer, without saying so, basically said that South Carolina's game day atmosphere was more impressive than Oklahoma's,
that's pretty much exactly what he said. He said, I've been in other schools and other conferences and they weren't as good. That's saying it without saying it.
No, he went even further than that. He said something like other schools at other conferences very recently that weren't as good. And I was like, okay, so we're talking about Oklahoma here. Got it.
Not as as you think there.
It's true though. I mean, I know that this will be your first experience inside Williams-Brice, right?
Can't wait.
And
what am I in
from
for?
What I
like seriously, as someone who's been doing this for like 20, what am I actually in for on Saturday?
I've never been in the press box, but the stadium itself is going to get really rowdy, especially right at the beginning, and especially on third downs. Big moments, all that sort of thing. So I did see that we're nearing a sellout, at least from like initial sales. I did see that there was some like resale tickets and stuff like that, but there aren't very many tickets left. I know that the students have pretty much filled their allotment. It's the highest student request since 2015. So a night game, people have plenty of time to get nice and liquored up or whatever. So it's going to be rowdy. Yeah. I'm excited for you.
It's going to be interesting for sure.
I wish that I could be there. I'll be there in a couple weeks, and I hope we get a good atmosphere for Georgia as well.
For sure.
But yeah, so you'll have to tell me what it's like from the press box and how much the sound bleeds in and stuff. But it's a legit SEC atmosphere. I mean, I know
I have no doubt about that.
South Carolina's like national perception or whatever may not be the elite of the elite in SEC, but I think their game day atmosphere is comparable with almost any other stadium in the SEC. So should be fun.
Yeah, I've been to Georgia, Florida, and Auburn in the SEC, and then I've also been to Clemson, which is kind of similar, even though it's ACC. So I'm excited. See what I got here.
Yeah, so I've been to a few Clemson games, definitely some Clemson Carolina games. Grew up, closer to that area, but I don't think it's comparable. I mean, it gets loud. Whatever, Clemson people can at me or whatever.
Yeah, they're gonna clip that.
That's fine. I don't care. It gets loud, but it's not the same. It's not the same. I don't know. I've been in Williams-Brice Stadium in some of the like loudest moments, like arguably, if you ask any fan, some of the loudest moments in South Carolina history. Notably, the Thursday night game against Ole Miss in 2009. where they had, Jevon Sneed running for his life. And that was the first sort of top 5 win of the Spurrier era. I think Ole Miss was ranked number 4 when they came in, or something like that. And that crowd wasn't even a sellout. It was a Thursday night, so there's probably like 65,000 in there or something. But literally, I've never heard anything louder than that in my entire life in the fourth quarter on those third downs, because it was like a 16-10 game or something. So defense played a big role. And yeah, I'm excited for you. Hopefully, it's not super loud in the fourth quarter, because that means they've taken care of business
Still tight,
by then.
right?
Yeah.
The one people always tell me about is and some of that was where I grew up too, the 2012 Georgia game, where it was game day was there and it was a top 5 maybe top 10 matchup, and Clowney went off, and that's the one people always tell me, like, this place is going to fall down.
Yeah, I wasn't present for that one, but just from TV, it seemed absolutely insane. I mean, they hopped out to a 28-0 or 21-0 lead in the first quarter. I would say an A. Sanders house one on a punt return, and I think at that moment that might have been the loudest that stadium's ever been. I mean, like I said, I wasn't there for that one, but I have to imagine that kind of like broke the scale on that one. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but they actually released the transcript of Kurt Herbstreit and who was he calling the game?
It might have still been Musburger at that point.
It might have been Musburger, but they're like talking during the commercial break, and they're like, "Do you feel that shaking?" They're like, "This whole stadium's swaying right now." And he was like, "I'm actually getting a little afraid." And they're like, "Have you ever seen anything like it?" So it's cool. I don't know that you'll get that level, but it should still be really cool.
Yep.
All right. As far as the game itself, so we've kind of talked a lot. Previewing. Was there anything else from the press conferences that you wanted to cover?
No, there's one Marcus Satterfield note, but we've got that for later. We're going to talk about him in another way, so I'm going to save that, but not really.
Okay. All right, sounds great. So we have done several features so far, kind of previewing the game. This is something that will happen weekly on GamecocksGroup.com. Also, I forgot to mention this. Right now, for 9th, so the first 2 weeks of the season, if you join for a year, you can pay $22, get access to GamecocksGroup.com, all the premium content for just $22, because it's 2022, and that's a really good deal. That's usually $100. So saving us 80%, 88%, or no, 78%. Sorry,
there you go.
Math is not my strong suit. Nice 78% off the normal price there, and I definitely recommend that, because each week we're going to have a lot of really cool features, kind of previewing the upcoming opponent. So one of those came out yesterday. It's called Behind Enemy Lines. Stan Autry with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, who covers Georgia State, wrote an article kind of just like previewing the game from his perspective. And then we also had Perry McCarty, who is our coach in-house. He used to coach high school in South Carolina and in Louisiana. He did like a film breakdown of some of the key players and stuff to look for Georgia State. So, I think the number one key to this game, and I think it's pretty inarguable, is, and you've written about this a little bit too, South Carolina's run defense can find a way to slow Georgia State down, because they are really good at running the ball. They were like number 8 in the country last year, and 1 through 5 or whatever is always going to be taken up by the service academy. So really, you can argue higher than that as far as a non-triple option team. And South Carolina was very not good against the run last year. I think they were ranked like 91st or something against the run last year. So yeah, how do you see that playing out, this push-pull between the run defense and Georgia State's run game?
No, that's really where the whole game is, I think. It was going back to the press for a second. It was Cam Smith, actually, when someone asked him, his thoughts on the tape and what he saw. It was, we know what they're going to do. They want to run the ball. I don't think it's any secret. That's what Georgia State's good at. Their head coach was an offensive line coach for 16 years between App State and South Carolina. They're going to ground and pound you. That's the identity. It's what they built their program on, and they're really good at it. And they've got, an all Sun Belt player at center. They've got, I think he was the guy who was 3rd team all conference at left guard too. it's going to have to be disciplined for South Carolina. It's going to have to be gap sound. It's going to have to be sticking to the scheme, because physically South Carolina should still be bigger than Georgia State. This is not a Georgia-size offensive line. This is not even a Clemson-size offensive line. It is still a Sun Belt line. Like, size-wise, there is an advantage for South Carolina, but it's a very technically sound, fundamentally solid Georgia State offensive line that's played together a lot. So you're going to have to be sound in your gaps in your scheme on defense if you're going to be able to fight that for South Carolina. And I think that's where this really kind of tips the scales one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina fans should remember Sean Elliott as the run game coordinator for Steve Spurrier. Now, it helped a good bit that a lot of those years he was run game coordinator. They had some excellent running backs and Marcus Lattimore, Mike Davis, these sorts of guys. But he, really revamped Spurrier's offensive philosophy from the run game standpoint. And it was really his schemes that they kind of installed into Spurrier's fun and gun to make the running game work. So it's no surprise to me that he's been so effective at establishing a solid run game there at Georgia State. And it's not just the running backs, although the running backs, South Carolina fans will definitely recognize as Jameis Williams, who played corner at South Carolina before transferring. He's been moved to running back, and he's the more lightning to the Thunder and Lightning. And then you got Tucker Gregg. Yeah. Then you have Tucker Gregg, who's more of the power guy. But Darren Granger himself put up 600-something yards rushing last year. And South Carolina fans can tell you that in the past, running quarterbacks have kind of been a bugaboo. So, going to have to contain him, make him stay in the pocket, throw the ball down the field, and see how our secondary can hold up. But I think that's going to make things uncomfortable early. It's also something, if Carolina fans remember the game against Navy back in, I want to say it was 2013 or 2012, one of those two, where South was definitely the better team from an athletic standpoint, but Navy was able to just keep churning first downs, and you really shorten the game that way, right? You go from having 10, 11 possessions of offense to 7 or 8, and then you have to really take advantage of those 7 or 8 opportunities. And if you make any mistakes, you don't have any time to make up the ground. So South Carolina needs to score early and make Georgia State have to kind of play from behind, because if they can get into their rhythm and kind of keep it into this back and forth game, or even a game where they jump out to an early lead, things can get really dicey.
That's what I was just going to say there. I was talking about this with someone else in the building yesterday. This is a very game script dependent game. You've got to play from ahead. At worst, you need to stay in striking distance. You can't be at a point where Georgia State can just do what they do. Because the other thing is, this is a very experienced Georgia State team. Shane Beamer's gone on and on about how they beat Tennessee in 2019, how they were one play away from beating Auburn last year. I think sometimes in these group of 5 or even FCS teams going up to FBS or SEC in this case, there's a deer in headlights thing that happened. Oh my God, we're winning in the second half. We have a chance for an upset. There's a thing that happens. You kind of just lose your composure a little bit. That's not going to be Georgia State. I mean, Sean Elliott was literally on the coaching staff at Appalachian State when they beat Michigan at the Big House 15 years ago today, actually. They're not going to panic if they have a lead late. They're good at closing down the game. You can't play from behind against this team.
Yeah, I did see that in the Behind Enemy Lines segment. Stan called South Carolina to win 28-21, and one of our posters. Yeah, I think I had it 31-17, something like that.
31-21.
Yeah, but one of our posters on the Insiders Forum, which, by the way, if you join for that $22 a month, you can post on the Insiders Forum and ask us questions and all that. But one of our posters on the Insiders Forum said a 7-point win would be a loss. And to me, I don't really have that mindset about this game. I think people might be underestimating how good this team is. I mean, it's a G5 school or whatever, but they're very experienced. They're returning pretty much all of the parts of that run game that was so effective last year. And I think South Carolina will score on their defense. Their defense is exploitable, but South Carolina's defense is going to have their hands full with this Georgia State offense.
Yeah, and you almost never hear. I'm writing a little bit about this for my preview for the rest of the game, kind of bigger one for running, I think, Saturday morning. You almost never hear coaches like put an opponent down or, oh, this is, every team's good, they all have players. But Shane Beamer said point blank, this ain't Eastern Illinois, who was the 1-10 FCS team they opened with last year. And Pete Lembo, special teams coordinator, said the same thing yesterday. Like, this is not Eastern Illinois. This is a different challenge. And you don't usually hear coaches just straight up say that a team they played in the past wasn't good, but that's pretty much what the implication is here, that this is a completely different type of season opener than what they had last year.
Yeah, if I'm trying to put it in like reference to South Carolina's schedule last year, especially if we're thinking about their wins, I mean, I think Georgia State's better than ECU.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, I think better than Vandy was last year.
I don't even think it's a question.
Yeah.
Probably better than Missouri too, which was a game South Carolina didn't win. But
yeah,
and really, if you want to just go ahead.
I would say they were comparable to like North Carolina. They don't have Sam Howell back there throwing the ball around, which he had a pretty rough bowl game anyway. But where they don't have someone that's maybe an elite passer, they have an elite rusher at quarterback. This is a quality opponent to start the year. It's not Eastern Illinois, so I hope fans understand that and view any sort of win this week as a win. Now, granted, you win by 2 or 3 scores, you should feel pretty good about it. But
I would definitely agree with that. I think Auburn really is the team. Just to quickly go back to your point, Georgia State played Auburn last year. South Carolina played Auburn last year. Georgia State lost that game at the last minute. Carolina won it kind of late. It's comparable. Like, they were about on Auburn's level last year. We know that was a tough game for South Carolina.
Right. Which South Carolina's upgraded on offense, but it remains to be seen if they've upgraded on defense. Like you're gonna miss having like Inigbare coming off the edge, which we're going to talk about who might step into that role. It's you're going to miss having a Jalen Foster, even though I do think that they replaced him with a very suitable safety in Devontae Reed, but everyone's got to stay healthy too. Other factors for the game early. We talked about this last week. Early on, it looked like there was going to be a pretty torrential downpour on Saturday night. There's still like a slight chance that there could be some thunderstorms. I think it was like 55% chance last time I checked, but should be, at least mostly dry. Shouldn't it, at the very least, it won't be a monsoon, which is nice. But yeah, I think that it's gonna be quite the test. One more just interesting note, another key player on Georgia State. This is someone that Stan Autry pointed out that I actually hadn't heard of. Tight end Aubrey Payne. We just posted on the site a Star Power article where we kind of looked at the recruits from the starting lineups for each team and who they were as recruits. Aubrey Payne was a 2016 recruit. he got granted his 7th year of eligibility to play. So, I mean, that guy's what, 25?
Probably got a mortgage, yeah.
That's interesting to see. Any other notes on the game or on Georgia State that maybe we haven't covered?
Just my one other kind of quick note that I think could swing this game either way, and we've talked about it plenty. Turnovers either way, of course, that's been probably the biggest question with Spencer Rattler when he was at Oklahoma. That was something both these defenses excelled at last year. We know South Carolina led the SEC in takeaways, and Georgia State also set its program record for takeaways last year. If either team gets a couple, that obviously changes things considerably, but you just don't know how that's going to shake out until you get into the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's one that you can never really predict, but obviously in these sort of G5 versus P5 early season upsets, a lot of the factors center around whether or not you're playing sloppy. And I know that that's something that the coaches have talked about a good bit this week, both from a turnover standpoint and from a penalty standpoint, is that they want to be in midseason form. Of course, everyone wants to, right? But be in midseason form this first week, because if not, those early mistakes can kind of come back to bite you.
Right.
One more thing that I wanted to do, or that we wanted to do before season started officially, is kind of go on the record with our final preseason predictions. So how's the season going to play out, Alan? We got a couple categories here that we're going to kind of I'm going to put you on the spot, or maybe you thought a little bit about. And then, yeah, we're officially, this is our take now. So what's your final record prediction for South Carolina this year?
I'm sticking with what I wrote on our website a couple of weeks ago when we did the staff predictions. I'm saying 7-5. I definitely think there is a ceiling for 8 or 9 if things break right. I'm not quite comfortable going there. I think the depth on defense is still a concern once guys get hurt through the year. But I think 7's a fair target. There's definitely winnable games you can pick off here. There's swing games in the SEC that this team should be capable of at least competing in. And if a couple of those break your way, that's obviously going to raise the ceiling. I think 7-5 is fair, and that's where I'm sticking. But I know you're a little bit more bullish than I am.
Well, yeah, I said 8-4, but I'm not always sure how it plays out, because I think I put one thing down for our staff picks a couple weeks ago on that article. I think I had them. Did I pick them upsetting Georgia at that point? I don't remember. It's kind of played out
upsetting Georgia and Clemson and still losing 4 games.
Exactly, yeah. And then I just finished the game-by-game previews and predictions, where I did like a deep dive on each team on the schedule throughout the offseason, and went ahead and went on the record and said what was going to happen, which is like impossible to do when you're thinking about games in November, but I tried. And I still ended up with 8-4, but I think I had them losing to Georgia and Clemson, but beating Florida, Tennessee, Missouri, Kentucky, like basically running the whole East other than Georgia to get to that 8-4. Which
I think I had all of those except Kentucky.
Yeah, I think in the initial one I had them losing to Tennessee and Kentucky, or Tennessee and Florida, or something like that. So yeah, I think 8-4, but I have no idea how it's going to get there necessarily. I feel like they're probably going to lose at least one of those swing games that they should win, a la Kentucky or Missouri. And then I think that they're probably going to win a game that they're not expected to win, maybe Arkansas or Texas A&M, maybe Georgia, maybe Clemson. I think out of those 4, they're going to pull off one of them. I just don't know.
Which 4 again? Arkansas, Georgia, A&M, and Clemson?
Yeah. Which are the 4 toughest games on the schedule, probably.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with that. Interesting.
But I also think that they'll drop one that they shouldn't too. So we'll see. But that's my take. 8-4, 7-5. All right. What about the leading rusher this year? Who do you think is going to lead the team in rushing?
I really wanted to say Christian Beal-Smith, because I'm a big believer that, like, if you're bringing a 6th-year guy in from the portal from another Power 5 program, you're not bringing him here to sit. Like, he's going to get carries. But between his injury stuff and what sounds like a very good preseason camp for Marshawn Lloyd, I'm going to stick with Marshawn Lloyd and say that he leads the team in rushing.
I almost went Juju McDowell, because I feel like they might use him in like that lightning versus thunder sort of dynamic. And, he was in the bowl game, I think he averaged like 9 yards a carry or something. If they pick their spots to get him out in space, he's electric in space. But I don't know if he's going to get the carries. And like you said, it sounds like Marshawn Lloyd has had an excellent preseason. Sounds like being like the 5-star recruit that he was when he came in. So I ultimately think it's going to be Lloyd as well. Let's just hope he can stay healthy. Leading receiver.
This is the toughest one on the whole list here, honestly, that you've given me.
That one is tough.
Again, there's like 6 options here. I'm going to go with Jaheem Bell. I know he's technically a tight end, but I think you just meant like leader in receiving yards when you wrote this.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I just think that frame, that size, his ball skills, he was 2nd on the team last year, I believe, only behind Josh Vann. I think having a much better quarterback situation is going to work for him really well, especially in the red zone where he can use his frame a little more. Yeah, this is tough. I don't think there's really a wrong answer to this one. I would say Jaheem Bell, but I'm curious what you have to say.
Yeah, I think Bell's going to lead in yards per catch. He's going to be the most explosive for sure. But as far as like leading receiver, I actually picked Antoine Wells Jr. From what I've been able to tell, he established a connection with Spencer Rattler pretty immediately after arriving on campus. In the spring game, he got peppered with a couple passes, like right on that first couple of series. I think that he's going to be sort of a possession receiver, and I expect him to lead the team in catches at the very least. And if you lead the team in catches, you have a good chance of leading in yards. Although I think there can be an argument to be made for Van, argument to be made for Bell, and an argument to be made for like a Xavier Legette, who's come on really strong, and I don't really know what to expect from him. I know that everyone's talking him up. I wasn't expecting him to necessarily see him in that top group if you would have asked me, last spring. So, maybe he's taking a step forward and he's going to have an elite sort of year. But yeah, I think that there are plenty of options, and I think the ball is going to be spread around. But if I have to put my name down, I'm going to put it on Antoine Wells. All right, let's move to defense. Who do you think is going to lead the team in sacks?
I think most people would say one of the two Jordans here, either Birch or Strahan. I'm going with Birch, 5-star recruit, hasn't, had some different things. He came in the COVID season. That was tough. He's been through a coaching change. He's here now. He's starting. He's got his role. He's the 5-star. I think people are probably going to see the real Jordan Birch this year, the one that was so hyped when he was recruited. I think he's going to have a big year if he stays healthy.
All right, just real quick quiz. How many career sacks do you think Jordan Birch has?
4?
He's got 1.
1?
Yeah, it was last year too. He had 1 sack last year, and that's 1 on his career. But no, I by all means, it sounds like he's kind of taken the step forward. He had very high expectations as the highest rated D-line recruit since Clowney whenever he came in. And then kind of, like you said, had those various struggles that you just talked about. But it sounds like he's arrived and he's ready to sort of make his name known and hopefully make a push for an NFL draft position and all that sort of thing. So if all that's true, you could be right. I picked the other Jordan, Jordan Strahan, who has 13 career sacks. He had 4 last year. And yeah, he had 3 last year, but he has 13 and a half on his career. Now, granted, some of that was at the lower level when he was playing with Georgia State. But yeah, I expect him to be used primarily in pass rushing situations, although you can make an argument for Brad Johnson if you want to use the same sort of like rationale, I guess. And yeah, they know what they have with him. I mean, he's a speed guy off the edge that's going to be expected to go after the quarterback. So I think, yeah, he's just more of a pass rush specialist. But Jordan Birch will be in there pretty much every play, so he's going to have maybe a couple more opportunities. We'll see. And then on the back end, who do you think is going to lead in interceptions?
I think I have to go with Cam Smith. I mean, there's some intriguing options. You've got Devontae Reed's experience. RJ Roderick's had a couple picks in his career, but I think it all just has to come back to the guy who's probably going to be a top 10, 15 pick in the NFL draft in April.
Yeah, so Cam Smith last season had 3 interceptions, and that ties everyone else, ties or exceeds everyone else's career interceptions.
Yeah.
So Devontae Reed has 3 in his career. RJ Roderick has 2 in his career. Jordan Birch has 1 in his career. Yep. So 1 sack and 1 interception. So there you go. But yeah, I think house money has to be on Cam Smith for sure. So no controversial opinion there. What about Spencer Rattler touchdown passes? If you had to put the over under, where are you putting that over under at?
I'm gonna set it. This is a good one because I'm trying to set it and also decide if I go over or under it. I'd set it around like 31.5, 32.5. We were making a Vegas spread here. His career high is 28, but that was also in the slightly COVID shortened season at Oklahoma, so we didn't get a full 12 games there, or 13 with a bowl. So I think you're close if he stays healthy. I think this offense is going to throw the ball a lot. He was averaging about 1 touchdown every 13 pass attempts at Oklahoma. So you can do the math there with how often you think South Carolina is going to throw the ball. I'd say it probably ends in the 30 to 35 range for Spencer.
So what's your official answer? 32.5, and you're saying
over. Yeah, I'll say like 35.
Yeah, we had I 30, which is probably underselling it a little bit, because I would probably smash the over on 30. And yeah, I looked up the same thing, right? He had 28 in that COVID shortened season. If he plays a full 13 games with the bowl game, then I think he should exceed 30, no problem, as long as everything goes according to plan. 35 would be pushing it, I think. 35 would be like
that's the upper limit. Yeah,
that's a very good season. Yeah, because that's about 3 a game.
That's all. Yeah,
so you're doing pretty good if he's averaging 3 a game. All right, the last two are a little bit of a joke, but I said over under message board bashings for Marcus Satterfield, which last year, pretty much anytime the offense wasn't performing well, which was most games, the message board is just a litany of fire Satterfield, Marcus Satterfield, blah, 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 which he actually spoke a little bit on that. He's spoken on it a couple times throughout the offseason, but he spoke about it a little bit this week. I don't know if you had anything to say about that.
Yeah, someone asked him yesterday kind of about, I think the question was worded like, is he ready to get to a new season and just kind of turn the page from all the criticism he had last year? He was very just like, yeah, imagine, he said a lot of other offensive coordinators would have come in here and struggled if they had to play 4 quarterbacks, which is fair. I can't say he's wrong about that. The quarterback situation was pretty bleak last year. But the flip side of that is that once you back yourself into that corner and you kind of imply, hey, if I had a good starting quarterback, I would have put up really good numbers on offense. All right, well, now you have your quarterback. You back yourself into a corner there, and he's going to have to deliver with that.
Yeah, so that was something I noticed in the spring too. Both he, Adkins, and Beamer all blamed a lot of the sacks that the offensive line gave up on the quarterback play as well. So that's been kind of this ongoing theme of like, oh, well, we had to play 4 quarterbacks, which, like, again, like you said, fair, not an ideal situation. You'd never want your grad assistant starting games at quarterback. But there's really no more excuses then.
Right.
Now that you have Rattler, and even if Rattler gets hurt, we've talked throughout the offseason that Doty, seems 100% healthy. It seems like he's got everyone's confidence, all that sort of thing. So, you got options now. And I don't think that you're going to be able to lean on that as an excuse if things do go south. Now, I'm going to start off the season optimistic and believe, what they're saying, that so much of the struggles last year were because of the quarterback. But I do think if some struggles start to happen, you're going to start to see some people start to chirp once again at Marcus Satterfield.
I'm always going to take
I don't know what the
anything involving message boards or criticism. I'm always going to take the over.
Yeah, I don't know what the official over-under would be, 300 or whatever. But and then so we finally have an official nickname for Sir Big Spur, or the artist formerly known as Sir
formerly known, yeah.
He's going to be called the General after General Sumter, which, that's the nice PC, probably smart move by the university. But last week, the state actually, state newspaper, put out a poll for what the new name should be. And of course, it's the internet. So the top option was Cock Commander. And that went viral. I mean, I saw it on Reddit, college football.
The Athletic did a thing on it. Oh yeah.
Yeah, all over Twitter. I saw ESPN was talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So sure, his name is the general, but we all know that the student section is calling him Cock Commander. We know that people online are
Spencer
calling him
Rattler
Cock
called him
Commander.
that yesterday.
Yeah.
2 days ago now, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Again, I was on Reddit College Football looking at the Georgia State South Carolina, and in those previews, people pick who's going to win the game in parentheses or whatever, and most of them said South Carolina, South Carolina, South Carolina, but you had quite a few fighting Cock Commanders or whatever, right? So because it's become so memeable, surely someone is going to be smart enough to make some T-shirts. So how many Cock Commander T-shirts are we going to see in the student section on Saturday?
I'm going to say probably pushing 1,000. I expect to see him in the parking lots, different versions of it, pictures of the rooster on the shirt. I don't know. It's just the kind of dumb story that makes college football fun.
Yeah, I don't know if you've talked to Ben over at the state, but if they're smart, they should merchandise that and put out that T-shirt themselves.
No, Ben actually, that's funny. It's not as memeable. He came up with Cluck Norris, which I thought was really funny. I've heard Darius Clucker.
I saw that one. Yeah,
George Roosters was mine. Yeah, I don't know if you had one.
I retweeted the SEC Network, like they did only wrong answers, like top 5, and Darius Clucker was one of those. But I can't. There was one that just had me cracking up because it was a clear you're almost saying something that you shouldn't say. I did. Oh, Dwayne the Cock Johnson was one. I thought that was pretty good. But yeah. So I'm with you. I 100 just to not put in even 1,000. But I saw in a random 2014 article that I did to research this because I do heavy research on student sections and Cock Commander T-shirts to get the number exactly right. That there are 10,000 student section seats on the lower level. So that's kind of what I was basing it on. So yeah, 1 out of 10, 0.8 out of 10 students wearing a Cock Commander T-shirt. The question is, who's making the shirts? Maybe they're not ready for week 1, but throughout the season, I think
when you're here for Georgia, you're just going to see a bunch of them sweat towels because it's a noon game, all that stuff.
I mean, if I can find one for sale when I'm there for Georgia, I'm going to get one. So I need that one, and I need the Find Some Joy T-shirt that Shane Beamer wore at the press conference last year. I like that one too. All right, so there we go. We're on the record there. Any other final thoughts as we head into the weekend here?
Just really excited to have college football. I mean, we talked about the backyard brawl tonight. That's going to be great. I don't know if you read the Sports Illustrated story that came out, I think it was yesterday, about the 2007 game, the 13-9. Talked to a bunch of people who were involved in that. That was really interesting. And then obviously, we've got Tennessee tonight, a little bit of SEC East. They're playing Ball State. Shouldn't be too interesting, but it's something. Games tomorrow, games Sunday. We get the Brian Kelly debut Sunday night, and even a game Monday. Even though I don't think Clemson Georgia Tech is going to be that interesting.
No, well, Clemson's like a 21-point favorite, and I think they might cover that
pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some upsets that I have because there's always.
We can do a little. We can do. I think our picks articles going live today or tomorrow, but we can go through a couple if there's some games you want to. We got Notre Dame, Ohio State. I mean, that's the big game Saturday night. Unfortunately, at the same time as South Carolina, Georgia State. But yeah,
I think I picked Notre Dame to cover, but I think Ohio State's winning that one.
Yeah, sure. I think this might be in really, really, really good Ohio State year instead of just a very good Ohio State, maybe like last year. That receiver group's ridiculous. They're going to score 35, 40 a game.
Yeah, and they just picked up 3 more 5-stars this year, 5-star receivers. Yeah. So yeah, they're fine. But yeah, that spread is 17 points. So I think
maybe huge number for a top 5 game.
That's why I think Notre Dame can maybe keep it close. Of course, I have no idea what's going to happen with that new coaching staff, and that's a tough first test. But let's see, a couple more. Arkansas is favored by 6.5 over Cincinnati. That's going to be an interesting one to watch. Get a little preview for next week. I'm surprised that they're favored that high, I guess.
It's tough.
I mean, Arkansas is definitely like the darling, I guess, of the SEC West as far as the non-Alabama teams. But
it's tough because Cincinnati's losing so much. Like, you lost a quarterback to the NFL, you lost a top 5 pick at corner. I think 8 total players in the NFL draft last year. That's a lot of turnover for a road game week 1. But at the same time, it's still a team that went to the college football playoff, went undefeated in the regular season last year.
Luke Day's a good coach.
For sure. Luke Fickell. Got
Luke
your Ohio
Fickell,
wires crossed there. Yeah.
Luke Day's, yeah.
No, it's I mean, it's kind of a big number, but Arkansas playing at home, I wouldn't be surprised if they covered it. And then you got Georgia, Oregon too at 3:30. Dan Lanning Bowl and Bo Nix against the SEC again.
Yeah, I mean, I think
nothing there.
I think, yeah, Oregon is good. They just, and I think that they're going to have a nice little run in the Pac-12 this year. They just don't have the trenches, #trenches, to hold up. I don't think. I think Utah is going to cover against Florida. They're favored by 3. I think that they're going to.
I could not believe how small that number was. Florida's turning so much of the roster over. Utah was really good last year. Like, I think people forget they almost beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Like, I think they're going to go down there and drop one on Florida. I think they probably win by double digits. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, we don't condone betting on here, but I can guarantee you that Utah spread is part of my parlay this weekend for sure. Let's see. What do you think tonight?
West Virginia. I picked West Virginia. What's the number? Is it 7 right now? 7.5?
7. I have 7.5. Yeah.
Okay. I picked West Virginia to cover. I think that's kind of a lot of points for a huge rivalry game and week 1. That's 2 huge variables. That usually means the game's closer. I do think Pitt wins, playing at home, changing quarterbacks, but West Virginia is as well, so you can't really say anything there. I think Pitt wins but doesn't cover. What about you?
Yeah, I've had West Virginia covering. I could see them winning outright. I don't know a ton about West Virginia, so I had to look into the previews of each team. I know Pitt, like you said, is missing their first round NFL draft pick quarterback. So that has to be a big factor. But a lot of people are picking West Virginia to kind of make a run this season.
It's the JT Daniels factor, I think, as much as anything.
And a lot of belief in Neil Brown, who,
it's kind of time there, man.
Before. Right.
He's good at Troy, but it's been 2-3 years there. It's probably time to get moving.
Yeah, and I guess that was sort of the argument that was being made was if they're going to start to show improvement, it's going to be now, and maybe they catch Pitt in this little transition.
That would buy them a lot of leeway with boosters and stuff, getting a win over Pitt.
Definitely.
And then 2 more I wanted to go to, just because they're local and they're both in the noon window. So if you're tailgating or whatever, you can definitely watch both of them, hang out. We got UNC at App. We've got NC State at East Carolina. A little bit of a North Carolina kind of, I don't know, jamboree there, I guess. With Mac Brown going to Boone there. And interesting NC State team that's ranked pretty high preseason, but East Carolina's got a returning quarterback who was pretty good last year. They went to a bowl game. They almost caught South Carolina last year up there. I think both of those games have intriguing G5 over P5 upset potential in the noon window.
Yeah, so North Carolina, I picked to win and cover because I think you had said this earlier in the Slack this week that they have been beat up in the media all week because of the poor showing, and it's an opening game. Sometimes you come out a little sloppy, and then you look a lot better week 2. So I am expecting them to look better, and I think that they'll probably be all right. But the NC State East Carolina game. So me and my friend, shout out to Roach. Yeah, I know that's his name. We usually go against each other on a couple of games each week, and that's one of our sort of swing games. So he has East Carolina covering, and I have NC State covering. So that'll be interesting.
12? What's the number?
11.5. We have it at 11.5. Maybe it's shifted a little since then.
Yeah. All right.
So I can't wait for some football this Saturday, and check in with GamecockScoop.com during the game. Alan's going to have some live updates. I'm going to do some kind of color commentary as I'm watching the broadcast to kind of add anything there. We'll have some immediate stories on Saturday night, Sunday morning, breaking it all down, and then we'll hop back on here either Sunday or Monday, or one of us will, or both of us will, and sort of break down how it went and start previewing Arkansas.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks for checking in with us at GamecockScoop.com and the GamecockScoop.com podcast. Until next time, go Cox.